This is the most remarkable story. It almost boggles the mind. Can you talk us through exactly the timeline of events here? How did these boys end up suspended?
So apparently one of the boys was dared to bring a Quran into school by his friends while they were playing some kind of PlayStation game online. And once he'd brought the Quran into school, teenage boys, as teenage boys naturally do, they didn't take 100% care of it. It got a bit scuffed. It was dropped on the floor, apparently. And after that, rumours spread that they'd burned the Quran, that they'd spat on the Quran, that they'd torn it up in front of other kids. So there was tremendous pressure from local Muslims, from a local mosque, from elected politicians, including Councillor Usman Ali. And I think it's very necessary context that just up the road from Wakefield in Batley 2 years ago, a teacher was forced into hiding for showing his pupils a cartoon of Muhammad. And he's still in hiding, such is the level of intimidation that he faced. I mean, this was shortly after Samuel Paty was killed by a murderer in France for a similar incident of showing a picture of Muhammad. So there are real fears, not just that the school is going to, it's going to get a bad reputation, it's going to get a bad Ofsted result. There are real fears for the physical safety of the students who receive various death threats, for the teachers, for everybody involved. So sadly, the authorities didn't have the courage to stand up to these bullies, and instead they decided to throw these kids under the bus.
This is extraordinary. This seems that threats of violence are winning out over reason, over secularism, over liberalism, really, when it comes to many parts of our country at the moment. Looking at what happened in the community reaction, there was this most extraordinary public meeting that you wrote about where one of the four boys' mother was brought in to speak to I believe it was a religious gathering. She was asked to wear a headscarf at that meeting. And she sat there looking terrified as these religious leaders almost berated her for having the temerity to have a son who scuffed a book.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the man who was speaking at that time was a local councillor. He wasn't, he was an elected official. I think even previously a Conservative official. Now he's an independent councillor who, with a member of the police sitting next to him, was allowed to behave as if the ultimate, the most biggest controversy here was that four boys had been allowed to slightly mishandle a book. Not that they'd received threats of death, not that the school had been intimidated. And that was all, just the unfortunate, maybe regrettable, but understandable byproduct of this biggest scandal, which was just teenage boys acting like teenage boys. And I think we really have to stand up to this, this sneaking premise that the ultimate scandal is someone being given offence and not threats against our institutions, threats against people's safety, threats against children's safety.